Hello everyone, Colin Cadet here for Woodwork Web. As you recall, a few videos ago we actually made this tablet stand for our new tablet that we want to use in the workshop. And there's a variety of things that we can do with it. But one of the things that we wanted to do was to load some of the woodworking applications that are available. And that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to go and have a look at some of those. But before we actually start and load some programs, we're going to go to the computer and have a look at them on the computer because it's easier for all of us to see. So let's go to my computer and we'll have a look at some of these applications that we can actually load on our tablet. So here we are in front of my computer screen, and the reason I've come here to see this is because I can read about the details of the applications that we want to load on my little tablet here. I can read them much easier on this bigger screen than on this smaller screen. This is really more of a portable device for me, and I do expect to be using it in the workshop. So that's what I want to look for today, is some applications that I can put on this. Now, this tablet that I'm using uses something called an Android operating system. And if you have an Apple iPad or an iPhone, it has a different operating system. So you'll have to go to an iTunes store or another place to find a different set of applications for this. This one uses Android, so in this case I'm going to actually go to Google, who actually developed the Android operating system, but they also have an area within Google where you can go and look at those applications. So I'm just going to zoom in now to the screen and we'll show you where that is so that you can go there yourself. Okay, here we are in front of my computer. And the first thing I want to do is bring up Google, and when we go to Google, if you go to play, you'll notice there's a play at the top, and we'll click on that. And when that screen opens up, you'll notice there's a variety of things that you can look at. In this case, we're going to look at Android apps. So we'll click on that. And there's some of the Android apps that are available. Now, most of these I'm not really interested in right now, although there may be some things that you might be interested in for other things other than woodworking. But today we're looking at woodworking, so I'm going to, in the search column up here, I'm going to type in woodworking. And it gives me a list now of all of the woodworking or wood associated programs. And the first one is something called Wood Utilities. And it says it's a basic woodworking utilities including a board foot calculator, pilot hole guide, trammel length calculator, spacing calculator, and so on. So let's go and have a look at that. What's interesting with this one too is it's actually free. Not all of them are free. Some of them there's a nominal fee that you may have to pay for. So in this area right in here, it actually gives more of a description of what's in this, and I've actually looked at this ahead of time, so I have a little bit of an idea with this one, and this one looks pretty good. One of the things you may want to look at is the screenshots, and it shows you here, and you can actually scroll through the screenshots and see what's there, and then close that window. Also, you'll want to look at user reviews, and in this case it looks like only 11 people have commented on this, but what's interesting, 10 of them have given it a number 5, and one gave it a 4, so it's actually fairly well rated. What's new? There's nothing new in it. Permissions, this is very important, and we'll show you more about this in a minute. This application requires no special permissions to run, so this is definitely one we're going to look at. But let's go back and have a look at some others and see some of the other things that are on here. Here's the Wood Whisperer. Let's go and have a look at what Mark's application looks like. And of course it's a nice looking says this version will no longer be supported. If you're having issues please search for the Wood Whisperer free download latest version. Okay, so this particular one is not, so we don't want to download that one. But let's look at woodworking plans and projects. Let's have a quick look at that one. And this looks like it's from a woodworking magazine here. And the description is woodworking plans and projects combine traditional woodworking with the latest tools and techniques. So it's kind of an online or a magazine app. And there's the screenshot, the first one, second one, and it just looks like a magazine. There's actually a plan in there. So this one may be interesting. Let's have a look. Go up here and see what the user review. Well, we've only had 3 people review it. And 2 of them said they only gave it 1 star. One person gave it a 4-star out of 5. So probably not something we want to look at right now. Let's look at another one here. Let's go to let's look at woodworking the art. Let's have a look at this one. This one here says, the basics of woodworking, the art of woodworking, beginner's guide. Now this may not be something that everybody wants, but I've picked this one for a reason. Let's have a quick look at the screenshots. It's sort of a beginner's guide, so if you're new to woodworking, you may be interested in this one. The user reviews, only 1 person has reviewed it and they gave it a number 1. There's nothing new. Now let's have a look at the permissions, and this is what I wanted to show you. Permissions are very important because this application has access to the following. And I'm going to read this off for you because some of this is a little bit scary. In the storage, this application, if you download it onto your tablet or your smartphone, it has the ability to modify or delete the contents of your USB storage, modify or delete the contents of your SD card, and it allows the application to write to the USB or to the SD card. So that's not really an ideal thing. You want an application to be able to take over your tablet or your phone. Phone calls, it says read phone status and identity. So this application allows access to the phone features of your device. So if you're downloading on a phone, this can actually take over your phone. This permission allows the application to determine the phone number and device IDs, whether a call is active and a remote number connected by a call. So this application, somebody has access to your information by using this application. So this is definitely not something I would download. Some of these applications, and we're not going to go through an awful lot of them, but I want to give you an idea. Some of these applications, when you look at the permissions of them, you will find that here's one here, your location. The application allows to get precise location using the global positioning. So if your device has global positioning in them, and a lot of them do, this network or this application can actually find out your exact location, and because it has access to sending out information back and forth, it can actually send out to whoever is the owner of this or whoever can get this, can actually send out information about where you are in this application. So it allows the application to get your precise location using global positioning system or network location sources such as cell towers and Wi-Fi. These location services must be turned on and available to your device for the app to use them, but if you're using your phone, you're using them. Apps may use this to determine where you are and may consume additional battery power. Some of these things, when you look at them, they look good on the outside, but once you get into the detail, they're maybe not as good as you might think. Now, sadly, there's not an awful lot of woodworking applications available yet. So we're going to go ahead, and we're going to do this off camera. We're going to go ahead and download this one on our tablet, and we'll have a look at that. There's our tablet, and we've actually downloaded the program. We'll go to our main menu, and there's all the applications. Most of these are standard applications that come with the tablet, but there's the little woodworking, and if we zoom in a little bit here, you can actually see there's the little woodworking application. So let's click on that application, and there's all the different things that we can do. I thought one of the things that was pretty interesting in this one is the board foot calculator. So let's actually go and have a look at that. This actually looks like a pretty good little device. Let's zoom back out on that so you can see that a little bit better. Oops, there we go. I don't know if you'll be able to actually read this, but this is actually a board foot calculator, and of course there's a little keypad that pops up down below here so that you can actually type in numbers. Now the first thing of course you need to know is the thickness, and it rates this as 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and what's interesting is it defaults to 4/4, and I can see we're going to have to go down to the whiteboard in the workshop because I think we need to explain a little bit about this. So we're going to pick 4/4, and the width is in this case 7 inches. Let's change that to let's change it to 9 inches, and the length in this case is 36 inches. So the board feet is calculated at 2.25, and the cost per board or cost per board foot is $5. So it actually will work out the entire cost if you want to do it that way. So you could actually take this to the lumber store and figure out the board footage of what you're doing. Let's go back to the home on this one. Whoops. And have a look at something else. Pilot hole guide. Well, there's a dovetail jig calculator. Let's have a look at that and see what that does. Oh, I see. So that actually figures out the spacing. So if you know what your tail height is and your dovetail angle, you can actually work out your dovetail spacing. So if you're building drawers or something, this might be actually a useful little tool to be using. And there we are, back to our main menu there. Let's have a look at the shopping cart. I don't know what the shopping cart is actually about. It says the shopping cart is empty. I don't know. This is just a new application, so of course we haven't figured everything out on it. There's the whoops. Let's go back one more time. This is the trammel calculator, and if that's something that you're working with and making ovals or circles, that might be interesting. I think the most useful thing in this is the board foot calculator. So this is an application that you can put on your tablet or your smartphone to help you do things. But you know, this has triggered one thing with me, and let's go down to the workshop again, and let's have a look at the board foot calculator, because there's some interesting things here. If you load this program, some things that you should know before you go out and use this at your lumber store. So here we are back in the workshop, and we've loaded the application on our tablet, but there's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. And that's the board foot calculator. And when you're out purchasing lumber, there's some things that you need to know. The people that run lumber stores or wherever you're buying your lumber from can price lumber a few different ways, and it's important that you understand the ways that they can do that so that you can make a wise choice. Now, some places they will actually price it by the board, and when you know what a board is worth, then you look at a board and it'll have a price on it, or it will have a board foot written on it. and then there might be a price posted on the wall or something. So then you can figure that out, and you can actually use your tablet to do that. But if you're buying lumber that there's no markings on, and you're just looking at the board feet, and maybe you already know what the price is, when you're figuring out board feet, this is what you need to ask your vendor, what they're using for calculations, and here's why. Now, when I buy most of my lumber, I buy it, almost all of it, I buy it rough, and I often buy it green, so it's going to shrink on me. And when you're talking to a mill, they refer to lumber as a 1-inch board is called a 4/4. And they do it like that. So it's 4 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters is 1 inch. If it's 1.5 inches, they'll call it a 6/4. And of course, if it's a 2-inch board, it's called an 8/4. And that's when you're buying lumber, there's a 4/4, and if you measure it across, now it's shrunk a little bit because it's dried, but that's almost 2 inches. When you look at other lumber, and there's a couple of boards there. Now this is dressed lumber. This is 3/4 of an inch. This is rough. This is what this board looked like when it was rough. And you can measure this, and you'll find that it's just a little bit, well, in this case it's just a little bit over 1 inch. So when you're calculating for a board foot, now a board foot, just to refresh, I'm sure most of you know what a board foot is. It's 1 inch by 12 inches by 12 inches. Now that is one board foot. But here's the rub. When you're buying lumber and you're buying dressed lumber at your lumber store, and all of the lumber that's standing in front of you is all 3/4 of an inch, if you take that 3/4 of an inch and multiply it by 6 inches, and then by, say, 72 inches, you're going to get a figure that is different than 1 inch by 6 inches by 72. Now, there's where the difficulty comes. Some places, if you go and measure that and say, oh, I've got 4 1/4 board feet or whatever it is, they'll measure it and say, no, you've actually got 4 1/2 square board feet. And you say, well, no, it isn't, because I calculated. And that's because you used 3/4 of an inch. Now, even if the wood is 3/4 of an inch, many places call that 1 inch, because when they had to buy that lumber from the mill, they actually had to buy it, even if it got dressed, they had to buy it as 1 inch lumber. So somebody has to pay for that sawdust and chips, and that's you and me. If they are pricing it by 3/4 by the length and the width, then it's a little bit of a mock number, because they had to buy that lumber as 1 inch, kiln dry it, plane it, and sell it as dressed lumber. So that wood has gone off. So a place can price it either way, and it's up to you to ask them how they're pricing their lumber. Are they pricing it by 1 inch, even though it's only 3/4, or are they actually pricing it by the true width? And in that case, they're always fiddling with the numbers anyway, so it all boils down to the same thing for them. It's just a different way of calculating how you get to the end goal and how you price your lumber. So it's important that you understand that when you're buying lumber, what they're actually using as a width. Are they using the 3/4 inch, or are they using a standard 1 inch? When we were looking at this application, and I said, oh, this application defaults to 4/4 when you're using the board foot calculator, that's actually a good thing, because most of the places that I've dealt with, whether you're buying rough lumber or whether you're buying dress lumber, they almost exclusively, where I live anyway, they call it all 1 inch. They refer to it as all 1 inch. So you buy 1 inch by whatever the width and whatever the length is. And this pretty much concludes this video on applications, apps for the tablet or for your iPhone. Now, for all of you who are younger woodworkers and you're familiar with this technology, you know that I'm not, and you know that a lot of our senior members are not familiar with this technology. So we're looking forward to your suggestions and your input. This is where you can help us. We can help you with a lot of woodworking things, but you can also help us understanding the apps that we should be putting on our iPhones and iPads and tablets and smartphones. So, I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. We ask you to subscribe so that you can actually comment. We ask you to subscribe to Woodwork Web. We ask you to subscribe to this channel because together with your input, particularly with this program, we can all learn some pretty interesting and valuable things in the workshop. I'm Colin Canet. Thanks for watching.